Got a couple crowdfunded zines for you today. This one, we've taken a look at a predecessor issue. This one, how's the story though? And hello everyone, it's Tom, it's FANzine Live. We are looking at crowdfunded zines today. Our feature focus will be The Ghost System, #1. This is put out by Broken Face Comics out of Manchester, England. So it could have been a world zine, but I didn't know it when I started reading it. I am a fan of science fiction and, if you will, cyberpunk type of fiction. The notions that arose out of the likes of Blade Runner. So there is a genre of crowdfunded zines that handles a lot of cyberpunk comics, and it makes for compelling stories. As you can see just looking at this cover, you've got bright lights and colors, you've got technology, you've got kind of the grim and gritty dystopian future. So it's kind of that interesting mix of future tech, a slight element of the fantastic, but also the what happened to our world type of thing. One of the things that cyberpunk does as a genre is they like to spend a lot of time world building. This zine does a fantastic job of world building. My concern is that it might have done so at the expense of advancing the story to the point that we can follow it. And so I find that a tad frustrating as a reader. I look for a little more out of it. And again, also, we're talking about crowdfunding. And if you're going to go through the trouble of creating a full-size comic printed lavishly, I mean, full color all the way through, glossy paper all the way through. My concern is, at least with this first issue, is they didn't quite hit the marks. So I'm going to try to explain where I'm coming from here, and we'll get there. Anyway, written and created by David Wilburn, sequential artist Raphael Romeo Magat, front cover artist Clark Bint, colorist Linda Scott Campbell, lettering by Tim West. I actually like the art. It's very reminiscent of the art that, I believe his name is Andres Guinaldo, used on Titan Comics, Blade Runner 2019, 2029, and 2039 series. It looks good. It works. The question in my mind always is, what about the story? And so we start with this person, and it's a guy, sitting in a police interrogation room. I mean, this is a pretty stereotypical thing. And you can see that the police officer showing pictures from a crime scene, and it says, "What can you see?" And this person, you can see he's got something on his head there, and that will of course come out in the story. He sees the waves, feels the waves, manipulates the waves. And so we go back and try to figure out what's going on. And they're in Manchester, England in 2045. And there are a lot of good things about this book. I love these little bits and pieces of what appear to be radio announcers talking about stuff that's going on, helping set the scene, going a little further in world building than you would get out of individual self-reflection or dialogue. So it's like right here, it says, "It's a scorcher here in the big manch, and we've got those good waves coming in from the Liverpool coastal barrier. So you better put on your frocks, whip off your socks, and get yourself floating in the ocean before that pale skin goes peely peel. And don't forget the factor 90. Did I mention it's going to be hot, hot, hot?" So you can tell there's something going on. Liverpool, what is this coastal barrier? It's a good world building technique, and I love that. I love the establishing shots. Notice other people have these things on their heads, and you can see now he's lined up at a computer thing, a cybersecurity thing. So we've got some dialogue. He apparently works for a cybersecurity company. And then at the end of the day, so anywhere where you see this type of a caption box, it appears to be the interrogation. So that's the narration tool that they're using throughout this. Then he goes back to his cage, as he calls it, and it's a cage built in his apartment. So he's got his bed in here, and basically it's a mesh protecting sensitive electronic components from the signals that flood the outside world. But he gets his apartment busted into. They decide to take his cat, who is really an indoor cat, and take whatever you want. Just give me the cat. Don't let him get out, please. And so they're saying, haha, now he's an outdoor cat. And they smash him up. And of course, the cat dies. And he goes nuts. Excuse me. And as you notice, he looks up at the three guys who busted into his apartment and are now walking away. And you can see those same waves that you saw here. And he's onto him somehow. Says, the grief was overwhelming, but it let me see the world as it is. Superimposition of digital on top of the analog. So now he's seeing the traumatic grief of losing his cat. It gives him the transformative power of being able to see these waves in action. He started having issues now that he's been able to see these digital waves. And now he's working through it again. And you go back to another establishing shot. So you start with your mini scene of this going into, walking through downtown, going into the office, and then the apartment intrusion. We switch to a new scene, again, broken up by the interrogation. Goes through. Love some of the artwork, though. I mean, this is really nice looking stuff. You got the radio intro. This time it says, we're playing some old school, new school, stay in school, skip school tracks. He'll melt your face right off the bone. So with a big shout out to the Surfer Boys hitting the Anfield Breakers, and a dedication to anyone who's wondering if life's ever going to be the same again, we're going to play a song that your dad's dad used to dance to, the Smiths' Panic. It does a good job, again, setting scenes. You can see they've got some interesting roller skate type things, and you can see that this person did a bit of a bully move against this, what appears to be a homeless person. And our protagonist doesn't care for it. You can see his chip that's on his head activates and screws up the guy's skates. And it says, over the next month, I started to learn control and how to find the right signal and pull on it. So then he goes through and he's back doing some code hacking. And it gets a little bit odd here. His name is Sorrow, by the way. They talk about how his job, in part, is to protect against protect cybersecurity. And one of their clients is the maker of adult pleasure robots. And so they discussed that. And in this case, they then switch over to another city scene where you've got three robots, and you've got this rich person. They call them flesh mechs, the three robots, the ultimate slave worker. But they are hardwired to not be able to commit acts of violence, but they can make life miserable for their owners, especially when our friend Sorrow here activates them. And in this case, they're holding all of his stuff from the shopping excursion while he goes into the store or whatever it is. And the robots say, free, 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 having been led to do so, and they dump out all his stuff on the sidewalks. Everybody starts fighting for for those luxury goods. Oh, it's a restaurant, I guess, or maybe a nail place. Who knows? Um, and of course, the owner freaks out. He hits a bit of a kill switch, which kills the robots. Back to the interrogation. And as you can see, this is 2031. And if you go back and remember, this is 2045. So we're back basically to when Sorrow was a kid. And you start getting into some stuff that he did when he was a kid. If you note, he doesn't have his chip in his head yet. But they discovered that their headmaster or their teacher at their school they didn't like. So they came up with a plan to egg his house. The teacher, of course, is upset. Next day at school, has the guys in trouble, and says, of course, that the Sorrow character, whose real name is Tyler, is one of the ringleaders. So they get sent down to the headmaster's office and see he is not happy with having been caught. So they go online and they start screwing around with the headmaster's smart home, set off the sprinklers in his house. And that shows that he's starting to learn how to hack and cause problems. So then we go back to 2045. And in this case, gentleman's walking along. These poles are traffic crossing poles. And what they do is they notice when people are coming, and then they send signals to autonomously driving vehicles to stop. But someone, and it sounds like it could have been Sorrow, turned off the detection capacity of the poles, went from pedestrian hazard to all clear. The guy's still walking, and he gets smeared. All right. That's the end of the story. The first issue. Now, there are more issues coming. The third issue, I understand, is getting ready for Kickstarter. I own the second issue and read it to try to see if there was more to the way the story develops. Here's my concern. We are led to believe at the end of the book that Sorrow is under investigation for something. Looks like the death deactivation of people or robots or what have you. But it has nothing to do with what appears to be the only thing he's done in the modern day, which is get this guy killed. And it appears to be the same guy who disabled his robots. So I'm sure that Wilburn and Maggott and the guys at Broken Face Comics are trying to write a multi-page or a multi-issue piece that they could perhaps do a collected edition, a trade paperback, what have you. But there's no good resolution to this for all of this fantastic art. And really, the art is fantastic. Very, very well done. The coloring is great. The lettering is top drawer. I just don't see it in the story. Spends way too much time doing backstory and not enough time in the modern day of, 2045, trying to explain what's going on. In many ways, I look at this as being an analog to my Patriot, about the same size book. In this one, I too started with an interview. I too did a ton of flashbacks. And then at the end, I had a resolution, which in this case was the death of the original Patriot. I would like to think, now I'm no great, I'm not a professional comic writer, but I'd like to think that the Ghost system could have benefited from a similar structure with this as I used in Patriot. Unfortunately, it didn't. It's got a lot of good things going for it. Could end up being a great story. First issue needs a lot of work. Hold on, and we'll take a look at one more zine. Boxes, the British anthology, had their third issue. Stories are great. They are varied. The artwork is varied and almost 2 a piece is great. Has a little bit of prose as well. The cartooning is solid. Lord, look at those colors. Ugh. Brilliant. But even the black and white stuff, really nice looking book. Wonderfully creative stuff. And I will keep subscribing and doing what it takes Kickstarter-wise to keep supporting boxes, because it is a darn good book. Put out by, I believe it's called Third Bear Press. Yes, Third Bear Press. Put out by Third Bear Press, so you might be able to get hold of old copies of boxes. I would suggest getting all 3 and getting on their Kickstarter notification list for when they eventually come out with a 4th edition. Good stuff, everybody. Can't recommend it highly enough. That's it for now. Thank you so much for watching FANzine Live. I know this has been a long video, but I'd love to hear your thoughts just in general. Don't forget to leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like the video itself. And if you feel so inclined, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. Thanks again. I hope you enjoy, and I hope to catch you next time.